Is this gonna be fun or what? This will be one of the top leaders who care conversations I think we're gonna have in a long time. So I'm putting a lot of pressure on you guys to not mess it up, basically. So Serge, bienvenue. Paulo, welcome as well. Best way to start, it always is the best way to start, is if you can introduce yourselves. Keyword here is briefly, not about the business yet or not, but where you're from originally, where you are now, you know, a little bit about your background, personal, family, stuff like that, not business yet. If you want to throw in your favorite color, that's fine. If you want to tell something you've never told anybody in the whole world, that'd be super cool. If you wanted to reveal that now too, but that's where we're doing it. So we'll go, I guess we'll go, who's coming the farthest? Who traveled here the farthest from location-wise to get here? So Serge, you're up. Tell us a little bit about you.
Oh, well, I'm French. Nobody's perfect. That's already pretty bad, actually. What can I say? College dropout. So I'm absolutely not the triple PhD in astrophysics that I was claiming to be for so long. Look, I would say that electronics, since I would say pretty little, okay, when at the time, okay, was really, electronics the way we know it, okay, with barely nothing, especially when you're looking at some things, okay, today what electronics become. So I try to escape myself and not to be part of the problem, but I have been one of the guys who created the problem of electronics today, leading to data centers, the reason why Mr. Paulo and you, Mark, okay, have met. So well, adrenaline junkie from the beginning of the time, and loving that way too much. So I'm sorry, that's my vice, and I cannot refrain that. And I'm still the same, by the way, because I would say, that kind of adrenaline and the kind of a rush that I'm having, okay, with setting up the company. I'm doing, well, basically, I'm changing the rules, pushing people right and left, changing the rethinking, making a new business model, making a new way, new shifting paradigm, which at the end of the day, well, cool, I'm a troublemaker. All right. That's been that of my life. I had the shame of my parents telling me, God damn it, okay, can you have a job like anyone else? Yes, mom. Yes, dad, I promise you I will go do the same, which I never really did. So in sport, I did all the crazy things that you can ever believe. Okay, from skiing, jumping, paragliding, surfing, skiing, and doing karate internationally, and still alive, and still love it. Getting older, can still thinking I can still do everything I used to, but clearly knowing that I cannot because it's a way too late. So I'm getting fat like every old man become to. There we are. This is my story. Very nice meeting you, gentlemen.
A good story. I do know the thing about getting old, because I get back on the ice in hockey with my sons, and I used to coach a lot in hockey and others, and they're saying, Dad, no, you gotta cross over your feet, you gotta move to the center, and you gotta flex your stick. No, Dad, you're not doing that. You got to keep going. And finally, I tell them, I know what I have to do. It's just not working the same way anymore. So I kind of got where you're at there. Paulo, what about you, man?
Oh, that's funny. Paulo Silva, originally from Brazil. I try to be perfect, but we're not perfect. Anyway, but beautiful place, So grew up in a tropical country as a kid. Going to the beach a lot, doing a lot of sports. Eventually, at some point in my life, I was put in a position to make a decision to join the Brazilian Air Force, which are one of the most peaceful countries in the world. We've never been bombed. We've never had any war, and one of the largest countries, per capita in comparison. And, I know we have a very strong aerospace and aerospace engineering, Embraer in Brazil. And my family's, had connections and wanted to send me to the Brazilian military or come to the U.S. So eventually, I had someone take me around the military base, and I was around 17 years old because I finished high school early in Brazil, and I saw kind of like the infrastructure, and it just really didn't do anything for me. I says, I'm going to the U.S. So I ended up landing in New York. Went to high school here. I had to go to high school here again in the U.S. because I couldn't speak English when I came here. I was supposed to go back, I met my wife that I've been together for known over 30 years now, and was young back then, and I decided to stay, and ended up shoe shining in Grand Central, and working in dry cleaners in Times Square, handing out papers on the street, and eventually made myself through busboy, dishwasher into bartending. I eventually paid myself to college, and today I'm the CEO of a cloud hosting startup company, and I'm here to talk about life, and how things are so unpredictable, and at the same time how everything always comes together, right? In the end.
You guys are the epitome of unpredictable, but if you go into that, we'll never finish this conversation. So speaking of what you guys growing up and as kids, how would you define what you were like as a kid? And we'll start the other side this time with Paulo. Were you, somebody that organized other kids or heading up the lemonade stand, or building and stuff and taking things apart, or playing an instrument? Paulo, what about you?
Yeah, definitely the director. Young age, very authoritative. Always wanted to lead. Definitely not the quietest chap. You know what I mean? Very outspoken. How do I define my childhood? Oh my gosh, if you were to ask my parents, God bless my mom, she passed away, but they would say ADHD all the way, and we had to put them into 5 different sports settings and literally exhaust him, from 7 a.m. to 7 o'clock at night when he came home, and he was still energetic then, and that was the way to keep me tamed. But definitely curiosity, and spend a lot of time. Always, if there's one thing I've always done, is taking the initiative, right? So if I see something happening and nobody's moving, Silva is guaranteed to go in there and take a stab at it, or try at least.
So you were a leader kid or a pushy kid?
I think I was more of a leader kid, right?
Okay.
So and I was funny to a certain extent. I think that kind of broke the ice a lot. Where my style of leading in leading teams, that we always managed to foster very good relationships, and I think because I wasn't as stern or as rigid some leaders are, and more personable in a certain way. So that has really worked out to my advantage over time.
Okay, we're trying to establish a thread here. So what about you, Serge? Did you do it in French, English, German? What were you like?
Oh, I grew up as a French kid. As a French kid, in fact, I would say, I'm part of a, I would say that I'm half Spanish, half German. Okay, I'm German from my dad, half Spanish from I'm sorry, half German from my mom, half Spanish from my dad, and always has been a leader. Okay, how can I say? I was always the little one in any classroom. So basically, you were looking, I was at everybody around me, they all have, at least, I was at the head, I was at higher than me. So I needed to be bigger and higher than anybody else. Okay, that's the story of my life. So never stopped, full of energy. And in fact, my mom, since I was 3 years old, was putting me an helmet on the top of my head because she was absolutely worried that I'm going to bump my head on the top of a corner of a table. Of course, when I was some things, I was running at the bus, and since I was 6 years old, I wanted to be a pilot. I was dreaming my life, to be a pilot of, on the Air Force, and not any kind of pilot, the pilot on the what we call aeronaval, basically, on the carrier, where they said the plane land and take off, but not any kind of plane, the special plane, the prototype. So that's basically what it is. Everything starting, of course, trying to find something simple, well, was never really been my things. And you're talking about something which, by the way, hurt me, Mr. Mark, because you said, well, okay, now that when we were young, well, my son told me, he said, Dad, you turned 50, you're getting old now. I said, well, you don't get it. At 49, you're the oldest of the youngest. But when you turn 50, you're going full speed down, back to the youth. And this is why no one can help you after that, because no one can hold you down. Because you said, hey, I'm sorry, I'm on my way. Hey, you're the responsible one. I did my share. Now it's my turn to turn back the way I was. So anyway,
That's
still the same.
the circle of life, huh?
Absolutely. Well, let's go back to the roots. And still is responsible, okay, with little responsibility, because unfortunately we all know that life outside is basically putting our not our character, but our energy not leveled down, but let's say more channeled, in order for us, to spend the energy more wisely. And I think we still have the same eyes than when we used to, when we were from the youngest age. And we still dream to be the same kind of guys that we want, but for sure, we said the brain and the eyes work exactly the same way, even if the body doesn't work as much as we want it to. But the thing is, I would say the brain can really take the lead on that on so many ways. And I think this is maybe one of the reasons why I would say we have some common ground, okay, between all the three of us.
Yeah, I wonder did you speak this fast when you were younger, or was that a skill that you developed?
No, in fact, you know, uh, as a college dropout, I never learned. In fact, I learned English at school. I spent 13 years, learning English, but in fact, I never really learned English. And one day, I'd been fired, okay, right before, going to what we call to the baccalaureate, to go to the higher school, because basically I was cheating, okay, with a, piece of paper between my legs, to to answer the test in English, and then I'd be pulling out of the classroom because of that. So the fact happened that, of course, my parents were clearly not happy about this. So then I have to justify that to my dad, and my dad was the last person that I was saying, that I'm cheating. And what he told me at that time, he told me, well, that's very simple. He said, we don't have money for you and your brother. So you're on your own, man. Well, in 4 months, I swallowed the entire program of 4 years that I didn't do at school. Okay. And I won everything, and I had my things, and I got nothing, and I was back on track. Basically, that was the biggest, I would say, kick ass I never took from my dad without getting a slap, because for me, a slap, it was nice. But that part was pretty hard, in fact. And he made me realizing that, well, maybe it's time to stop messing around and to do some things about me, and to take responsibility. So that was a very nice wake-up call. But that's my life has been like that, okay, from the beginning of time. So I'm going down, and then, well, let's bounce back.
So that sounds like a little tough love there, on purpose or not on purpose. So that's a good segue to start with you again, Serge. Is to understand how you both come to today. Before we get into this important partnership, share a little bit about the journey. Not every detail, but the journey that got you here. Like Serge, for example, was this always the plan, or did you really want to become a pilot? What intrigued you to take the path that you're on now?
Oh, well, adrenaline was always what was my driver in any kind of thing. So basically, well, I was looking at people doing crazy stuff, and I said, well, you know what? They have a head, 2 arms, 2 legs. If they can do it, I can do it, and I can do it better. And this has been me. At the time, when in our generation, there was no, Red Bull, it was no camera, it was no Instagram, no nothing. We were doing that just for fun, because for the love of it, because we really like it. And we're trying to find crazy bastard like us. We wanted to do the same thing. And we were very lucky, we had a little group, 3, 4, 5 people in doing this. And I've been very lucky, because I had some very, very crazy guys doing that. So what I did, in fact, led me to where I am today. In fact, is a mix of everything. It was, first of all, my dad, when we built the house together when I was 17 years old, finding, I would say that construction of a house, first of all, you do insulation before you start to power, before you start to warm up or to cool the house. Called very old principle, exergy. And by the way, leading to data center today, if you want to be efficient. So first of all, the construction needs to be good. And then after that, because of electronics and because of telecommunication, well, basically I saw everything from the beginning. We're talking about, in the 80s. So way before the PC, before Ethernet, before anything we ever know. And you end up to find your life on, connectors, AMP at a time. Then after that, you work with Codenol, Mycom Interland, 3Coms, then Alcatel, then Lucent Technology, then startups. I have 25 startups around the world internationally. And one day you decide to create your company, because what you realize is, what is the importance of the energy consumption? And in fact, you don't really realize that when you don't puzzle up everything together. So one thing that I miss on that is when I finished my study on electronics, I started to work right away, as a trucker, loading and offloading truck, because I didn't want to go to the unemployment side. So, well, because in my family, unemployment was never be an option. And I was working, on after hours, taking, I would say, math and physics, and also nuclear science. And I loved, the nuclear stuff, and was looking what was everything's about. And then one thing's happened, it was Chernobyl. And then you start to realize what nuclear energy is all about. And you realize that the cloud goes all over Europe. And my mom has a thyroid cancer. A friend of mine who did the Olympics had thyroid cancers. And we start to say, well, why is that? But then you realize, I said, what is the impact? Moving forward, then happened Fukushima. And when I said Fukushima, I said, we're all wrong, especially when you look at the true impact of Fukushima and what happened in terms of impact on a global basis. And we were at the time where energy starting to start talking about, energy scarcity, because also of the demographics, and because also, I would say, the number of the people in the planet and how much energy we ask. Because, for example, you take, I would say, the basic household in Africa, you're talking about 3 megawatts per year. When you talk about the average household in the US, we're talking about 10 megawatts. So we change completely the ratio. And we know that the world is grieving for energy at any cost. And then when you do the things, I end up to be in the US at that time in 2013, where, 2011. And when Fukushima happened, then, Fukushima happened, then I was in the US at that time. And then it was a program, I was done by the White House talking about how to reduce the energy consumption based on an outdated industrial business model. And this is the way you realize that 50% of energy there is transportation, the rest is the building. And what is the biggest, the most energy consumer building, the most energy part is the building. And what is the building, which is consuming the most of energy is data centers. What is the biggest energy consumer in the planet? NSA. Here we are.
And that's where I'm going to tell you to pause for a second. This is the part.
You circle back.
This is the part where I love you. I'm telling you to pause for a second on that to show where you got to a certain point. So, Paulo, you were cleaning up like crazy, from busboys to all sorts of things, and on and on. What intrigued you to take the path that you're on now? What were the inflection points?
I was working in Staten Island. I was probably around 18 and a half years old, working for an Italian construction company. And I ended up digging a hole of like 6 feet deep. That by the time I came out of that hole, it took about 8 hours with a full day's work. Typically, they would use the Bobcat for building the foundation for a brick mailbox. But I ended up doing that by hand. And I remember the sun very hot in my head around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I couldn't crawl out of the hole now. I actually had to crawl up the walls with my arms, put a rope in the bucket, fill up the bucket while I'm down there with dirt, pull it up, and then dump it, and then go back in the hole, right? And I kept doing that literally for 4 hours. And this old lady, 4 o'clock in the morning, it was really hot, and this old lady comes out, and she sees me out, the way I was working and how hard I was working. And she says, "Oh, honey, why don't you come out of there and stop for the day, because I think you've done enough. And I have some lemonade for you." So she comes out with lemonade. It was really hot, and I'm drinking lemonade. I sat on the porch with her, and the moment I sat down, my boss drives in with the car. And he comes out of the car, and he's literally speaking Italian, and he basically tells me, he goes, "I should have given you more work if I knew you were going to finish so early." And I was like, hold on, I just sat down, right? So at that moment, I had a realization. I says, you know what? This has got to change. I says, I got to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And I've always been intrigued by electronics, technology, in particular networking. I even at a very young age, I spent a lot of time reading lots of documentations around COBOL, Pascal, basic programming, Python, even before Python came much later, but always intrigued into how to automate things and make things work. I then used the money that I made in that job to buy my first 386DX computer, brought it back to the house and had a really good time with it. Got together with, back in the days of, AOL and private chat networks and whatnot, became part of this sort of underground society of very curious individuals that just did things for fun. Like we would, maybe hack the AOL weather banner. When you log on, when millions of people logged on to AOL, we would say Loretto was here. You know what I mean? Instead of actually giving your local, weather station, weather news and whatnot. And then from there, having been in cybersecurity for a long time and really intrigued about how technology impacts people and how security plays a major role in the way we interact with technology, and the sacrifices that we make between convenience and security that every person in this world struggles with. Even today, when you go to buy an LG refrigerator, it comes with Wi-Fi. You don't need to be tech savvy. When you install the refrigerator in your home, you're like, am I really going to turn on the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi in this refrigerator? Do I need it? Right? Because there's a security concern there. There's convenience to know what's in your fridge eventually at some point. But this curiosity actually drove me to, work for, major Fortune 500 companies, heading their security division. I was the global head of data protection for Citigroup. I spent a lot of time learning the inner workings of banking, ACH, Swift transfer network, the concepts of managing ZBA accounts and whatnot. And then you realize that under all of these different types of financial transactions and the networks that supports them, there's an underlayer of security there that back then, really 20 years ago, didn't exist, right? And over time, I learned that, we've spent a lot of time patching things and band-aiding things. Kind of like you mentioned, Serge, going back and saying, hold on a second, we got to take a look at shift the paradigm here, because we keep in this sort of non-changing mode, and that non-changing or resistance to change is really preventing us from looking at the problem differently. And the way we look at the problem differently from a cybersecurity perspective is that you have companies that have, hundreds of millions of dollars in IT assets, and every time there's a threat or a vulnerability, they run to patch. So it's always reactionary. And after having band-aided that system for a very long time, you basically start replacing apples for apples, right? And and that apple is just one version higher or two versions better, right? But the problem still architecturally exists. So that brought me to start thinking about, what is the future of, not just on the cybersecurity side of IT computing and data center architecture, information communications and technology architecture. And I thought, you know what? I would like to be the first company in the US that's going to manufacture ICT data centers just like Ford Motors assemble cars. Because the way to do it is you build a data center, you run it for 5 years. In 5 years, you start your planning again for 2 years. When you reach that 7-year target, you take out that old data center, you throw it out, and you just replace it with something brand new, the entire thing, right? And now it's fully up to date. It's got the right architecture. And it becomes sort of a very repetitive way in modern society to help address not just the cybersecurity threats and risks out there, but also creating a product management life cycle.
Okay, here's the part where I love you too, and I'm going to pause you at the same time. And so that is a clear thread of where this is all coming to. So, we founded our firm, Fifth Element, on the basis that leaders and their organizations can do way better when they're doing good at the same time, socially, environmentally, whatnot. Congratulations to both of you. I mean, you're definitely recognized as leaders in your own right and your area of expertise. What I'm excited to hear now, and it can even be a discussion, talk amongst yourselves, as they would say, about share why and how you've come to partner and the value that you offer to customers and who are the customers. And then how does that turn into economic, social, environmental impact that customers gain by by engaging with you. So rock, paper, scissors, shoot, one of you starts and share how it all came to play and all that I just asked about.
Well, I'll add something. So Serge and I were talking at literally midnight last night, and I don't know where you were in the world now, whether in Dubai or back in Sweden or in France, but we're on the phone, and I was putting together a proposal, a package that's going out to a bonds financing company, and they're very creative in the way they create financial instruments to fund 10, 20, 30 megawatt data centers. And in the conversation that we're having, how we came together is that I own an integrated secure ICT infrastructure architecture that basically fits perfectly into Serge's product, which is immersion cooling. Because, ICT systems, they consume a lot of electricity, and the output of electricity is heat. And what data center, architecture has been struggling with over the years, it doesn't matter how hard we try, is to really, what do we do with that heat? Because it costs a lot of money to cool data centers. Anyway, so our products complement each other, so that makes it a perfect marriage. What do you think, Serge?
Well, I think if together we have been in touch, has been first of all because of Mr. Mark saying, well, guys, you two have some things to say to each other. And he was
right.
pretty damn right.
That's probably because you two always have something to say.
Exactly. Exactly. And I know basically why Mark, is making us, the three of us on this video call and trying to introduce ourselves, because at the end of the day, the circle back is going to come back to him. Here we are.
Yeah. There we go.
So in fact, he was absolutely right, because in fact he told me, well, I know a company, doing, I would say, these special grids for activities, and with all the kind of cloud and monitoring and those kind of things. I said, well, it could be very interesting based on what you, Serge, are doing, not only on data center side, but I would say with all the cyber aspect of it. And this is where basically your offering and Immersion 4 offering, match completely together, knowing that Immersion 4 is the stupid, so to speak, the stupid part of it, because we are basically the bucket receiving, I would say, all the IT and all the value-added proposal that you have on the top. But that bucket is basically leading, I would say, the energy consumption of data centers, which today are going to be representing by 2030 4% of the world energy, and can be reduced as less than 0.7. And the exercise that we did together last night clearly shows what is the value of an Immersion 4 proposal versus, I would say, the traditional data center. And we need energy, and we need natural resources, and we need to preserve the natural resources, what is left, and we need to avoid a world with pollution, and we need to be complementary in order to provide, I would say, solution we can be instantly usable and instantly replicable absolutely everywhere worldwide. And that's basically what you offer, Paulo, and what we are doing as Immersion 4, fit together. And after that, what do we need? We just need, I would say, ambassador who understand we can connect the dots, in order to find, I would say, where the markets are, what are things, and basically communicate to the world, hey guys, there's a solution existing. And then our solution become more than a solution. It become also a complete offering. We can be built locally. We can be tested locally. We can be using, I would say, not natural resources, but you are sourcing material, sourcing competencies, involving local communities, creating jobs, being basically 100% circular economy based. And this is where we circle back all of that. I had this idea on my side when I was doing Immersion 4, because we are French, as you know, are very, very smart and very, very arrogant, when they say something.
Of course.
And but obviously sometimes, you find out a Brazilian guy, immigrant in Brazil, from a Spanish guy, immigrant now in Switzerland, and an immigrant in Dubai, who basically said, oh my God, the guy is pretty smart and he's very complementary to what I do, and vice versa. And this is why circular economy and bonding and linking competency, no matter where we are, make a lot of sense. And it become more, I would say, than a business relationship. It become a way to do business, a way to work together in order to share competency, in order to expand. That's where I would say the two mix and pretty well together, so to speak.
We run further
Thank you.
if we run together.
Exactly.
Aren't you getting too
Merci,
old?
Monsieur Marc.
You might have to walk fast, but you might be getting too old to run. Isn't that? It's for
And I have to
people.
say,
Sorry, do one quick thing.
Yeah.
For people that laymen, if you will, that understand that data centers are going to be, crucial in the world, and there's no doubt about it. They hear that, but can you explain a little bit to, an executive or whatnot has a business, and he's not ignorant, but he's not tech savvy. He's not savvy about what you guys are doing, why this is important to them, and why they are, and who among them are customers of what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, basically, an immersion for customer can be any customer who's having a data room, any customer who's having a server. We need to cool this server, because the server, when you use your server, basically produce heat and need to be cooled, no matter what it is. Okay. And of course, when you're talking about multiple servers at the scale of the data centers up to an hyperscale data centers, you're talking about kilowatts to megawatts. Well, all of that need to be cooled. So now there is different ways to cool it. Either you use air, which is an insulator, or you use a liquid, which is a thermal conductor. If you use air, you need a special building, special infrastructures, and you have 60% of the energy up to 70 going to cooling, when you use only 30% of your electricity for your IT, which is the reason why, okay, it works. The rest, you really don't care about the over-the-top energy spending and infrastructure spending. And when you use immersive cooling, this is where you change completely the game. You have 90% of your electricity going to your IT load. Any building, your house, where you guys are right now, become a data center. And the cooling is not anymore an issue, because you're on the liquid to liquid, because liquid is a thermoconductor versus an insulator. So what that means for someone who doesn't know anything about electronics, he said, well, oh my God, I can have the server at my place. I can have my server in a data center. The data center is like a normal building. And instead of generating greenhouse, consuming 1.8 liter per kilowatts, which is the average today set by DOE on the last study regarding the data center water consumption, you can have data center with no greenhouse, no CO2, no water consumption, no microparticle emission, okay? Means no use of natural resources that you and I need to breathe, to drink, and having just the right amount of energy to be spent for the electronics in the same time. Because this is cooled by liquid, you don't have to protect those electronics. So you solve the e-waste problem, because today electronic is not recyclable, or hardly, due to all the chemical layers on the top of it. What are those chemicals? It's called conventional coating. And those are to protect against corrosion, humidity, oxidation, dust, electrostatic, and all the over-the-top materials like fan, cover plate, and everything's used for the server to guide the air to be cooled. So all of that is removed. All those parts are removed. All those chemicals are removed, making electronics recyclable. So it's a complete paradigm shift. At the end of the day, what it changed for any customer today? Nothing.
Mhm.
When you use your PC, you don't care about the board that you're typing on. What you care? You care about your screen, and you care about your keyboard. What is under? It's not your. Is not. It doesn't matter. It is the same. You don't care about what's running the data centers, what it is. But when you know that today you can basically power at 4% of the world energy, if all the data center in the world will be immersion 4, well, we're talking about powering 100 million homes with 4 people on board. That means we're talking 100 million households, okay, for free, with the over-the-top energy we're using today, with the actual technology we have for data centers. And Paulo, on the discussion we had last night, when we are making all the calculation and everything, well, it's a complete rethinking, because we are all formatted, to think on a certain way. And by the way, don't get me wrong, it took me 10 years to backward on everything, because, at some point you say, well, come on, where's the trick? And you see so many people asking you, where's the trick? But now immersive cooling is starting to go mainstream, because people have said, oh, wait a minute, that's the way to go. Because electronics doesn't need air and water. We need air and water.
So now that Paulo, you have something really cool, literally and figuratively, really cool. What is the executive getting, basically?
Well, companies don't need to struggle to manage their product life cycle anymore. They can just use it, and once the asset has lived its purpose, you basically replace it and you come in with something brand new, and that eliminates a lot of problems with respect to vulnerabilities in the system, particularly in the areas of patching and whatnot, right? Because systems are constantly becoming end of life all the time. And if you're a CIO, you're managing, you know, thousands and thousands of applications and assets that are running within your IT data center ecosystem, or even OT infrastructure if you work in industrial control systems and critical infrastructure. And it becomes very difficult for you to control, right? What products are becoming end of life? How much license do I have left on it? And next thing you know, you're hiring tremendous amount of resources instead of really redirecting your focus in supporting the business with new technology, new innovation to drive revenues up. I would say if you're a CEO, CIO, CTO, CIO, you spend your time really managing IT when your time is actually too invaluable for doing that. And there's an easier way of doing it. Going back to Serge, what he said, I loved what you said last night. You mentioned about 1.8 liters of water for cooling a server, right? If you think about it,
per kilowatts. Per
kilowatts, right? So you're spending 1.8 liter of water from our planet's most, important natural resource, and we're applying that to electronics, and I think that there has to be a better way of doing it, and the better way of doing it is immersion, it's immersion cooling, and Immersion 4 has it right because they have a modular deployment architecture. So you don't need to boil the ocean. You can start small and then grow gradually from there. So you can contain costs and you can actually do good for the environment at the same time. And one of the things that our combined architecture actually achieves really well is that we create not just jobs, we create well-paying jobs. And that's why I chose to actually have my hosting platform here in Jessup in Scranton, which is considered a disaster zone. It's a keystone opportunity zone in the state of Pennsylvania. And that's how we help create social impact around us, because Scranton used to be a great city, one of the largest cities in the country. And we're trying to bring it back, so it's just not about the business, it's about community and doing what's right for the planet.
Thank you for giving me that segue. That was awesome. Well, a couple of things I want to ask. The fourth industrial revolution, they talk about it, that's technology, AI, VR, you name it, all types of technology. But the fifth is about humanity, and which at Fifth Element, that's what we focus on: impact and talent and partnerships. What we found is, it's a unique skill that leaders who care, I don't say that to be cute, have, is that they know how to engage in strategic partnerships to truly care about all the people involved, what we call an omni-win, all the people involved. What are individual goals? What are team goals? In that light, there's usually a diversity of backgrounds. I mean, right here, you got, a Brazilian, French guy, and a white Jewish Canadian on the same call here. There's diversity, and there's diversity of not just, backgrounds like that, but experiences, expertise, ideas, thoughts, cultures that really make a difference. And the world's in a crazy place right now where people are having a hard time engaging with each other, in a way that looks at conflict that's just different ideas, not something you have to hate people over, but let's listen to each other. And like you guys did even last night and all the other times before that I've seen you talking about, how do we make this happen? How do we create something fantastic? And one of my favorite initiatives we're working on is having companies and organizations create, quote unquote, a non-flict culture. Non-flict being this program that's involved in this whole global partnership about let's get along with each other, so to speak. I would just like your thoughts briefly on how important it is to have a non-flict culture. In other words, actively listen to other people to come to a best case scenario to make a difference. Serge, you want to start?
Well, what kind of answer do you want? Do you want a politically correct answer, or do you want to have a straightforward answer?
What kind of answer do you think I want? I want the
Are you
truth
ready?
answer.
Are you ready for this one?
I'm never ready for that one, but go ahead.
Okay. Well, those comments, I will say, only engage myself and what I'm saying. I'm sick and tired by the way the executive and the leaders, the elected, the elite, whatever you want to call them, are managing 8 billion people. I'm sick for many reasons because I don't like the double standard, is the multi-standard, okay, which completely changed the flavor depending to who you talk to. What we try to do here, and let's be clear, between the three of us, a year ago, we didn't even know each other, okay, and me and Paulo were talking about what? 4 months, being in touch together and things, talking and things, and because, oh my God, okay, we are very complementary, and it never crossed our mind. Okay, but well, from where are you from? For what do you do? For what do you believe? And what is your color, your religion, your things, your roots? No, it was, well, let's make it together. Let's make this world a better place. And that's the word which is missing today in this world. We're talking about here some great things together. Water consumptions, pollution reduced to zero, best use of energy, delivering the maximum, optimum services, okay, securing everything, securing community, creating jobs, creating value and values. And today, what we're doing is way far beyond than a business. Is, like we said, we care. And we care because we understand what's going on there. And what we look at today, the way the political world is doing and what we've seen over there, I'm going to take an example for, I would say that's France. Okay, I don't want to put fingers on anything else. But we are importing now, I would say, the vegetables of any kind, of any sources from Brazil. We are taking meat from New Zealand. Somebody can tell me more about the carbon footprint? Somebody can tell me more about the pipes, Nord Stream 2, which has been blew up with the biggest scandal and the biggest, I would say, the greenhouse emission we've ever been in this world, that no one is talking about it? Can a life is worth more than another? Why? I would say because we are born on a certain way, on a certain place, out of two people who love each other. I'm French, well, because my parents love each other and I've said I've been born in France. But otherwise, I would not be French. I may be Brazilian, I may be South African, I may be Israeli, I may be Palestinian, I may be Russian, I may be Americans, I may be whatever. Okay? Will not change anything to who I am because what's the result is the family. And I'm just a product of my environment and the two parents who love each other. And when I'm looking about this world, I think I would say there is a total lack of responsibility. In fact, this is a lack of responsibility with a very strong level of criminality, forgetting where we are, who we are, and why we are here. And what you're doing, Mark, and this is why I love that about you, is trying to put people like that who seems to be have nothing to do with each other, but at the end of the day, we are pushed together by the same roots, by the same belief. And because we know that at some point, we will not give a shit about speaking the way I'm speaking to, because, well, if at the end of the day, people say, oh, well, so you see what you say, that's very bad. Yes, that's bad. What? Because you're bad. Because you cannot lead. Leaders that we have in this world, outside of few, don't realize they have been elected to serve, not to be served. We made a family in this world to have your kids growing up, to teach them how to behave, how to respect people, how to love people, to have them, I would say, living in a better place. And for us on our side, we make money not to, oh, well, we're going to be rich. Well, okay, fine. But if at the end of the day, I'm 60, 20 years from now, I'm not going to be there. I'm not going to take anything for what I have built. And that's the thing, which is today making me very insane and very angry against a lot of people. When I'm looking the total lack of responsibility, people talking about in this world where we think about loving each other, non-conflict. and I'm hearing in Europe and in the EU, people talking about and speaking about war. So I'm sorry, I'm going to be using a very bad word, but what the F are you talking about? You want to do it? Can we and go back in a smart time? You want to fight? Take your bloody weapon and go to fight yourself. See what it is to have your own blood on the field, and then you can talk. Until that day, never engage the life of anybody else. And that's what the world doesn't understand. And that's pissing me off when I see all those warmongers right now.
And to what you said before, it's important to serve, and the best way you can serve is to, or one of the best ways you can serve is to actively listen to what people want and what people are thinking and what people, you know, even if you disagree, the more you actively listen to other people, the more they'll at least say, wow, you actually did listen to me, and there's a chance that something then can happen. Paulo, what's your thoughts?
No, I think, you know, if I have to summarize, I've been thinking about what Serge just said, and you know, it hits home, especially if you're European, right? If you look at history, I mean, there has been, you know, so many major conflicts, you know, in Europe, and culturally, you know, you're impacted by it, you know, not just this generation, the next. And I think one of the things that I think we need to do better as not as, you know, individuals in different cultures, but as human beings, I think we have to really, you know, three things. I think communication, understanding, and empathy, right? And communication is just, you know, what we're doing here. You know, let's be open and have an honest conversation about, you know, what's essential here. What is the root cause of these things that are happening, right? And then try to perhaps, you know, motivate feelings so that people can go out there and sort of create a movement towards what's good. And I think, Mark, active listening is one of the core components of communication, right? And I also, in understanding, we need to figure out a way of being able to sit down without shooting each other, killing each other, and try to understand, put the problems on the table, and try to, you know, identify root cause, right? Understand each other's different points of view and perspectives, and then try to, you know, figure out ways to overcome the disagreement. And I don't think that's happening a lot. And lastly, I think empathy. You know, I think we're becoming a world. You know, you hear on TV all the time now. They even stopped broadcasting it now. When you hear a shootout like it happened in Kansas City, right? You know, at the parade, they're not even making a. I mean, they're not even making a big fuss about it anymore. You know, it shows on the news for a few minutes, maybe, you know, a couple of clips here and there in 24 hours, 48 hours, maybe, and then it's gone. It's kind of like, where's the empathy? It's becoming the normal. Right, so that's very dangerous. I think that, you know, I think government really needs to, you know, approach, you know, the what's happening today in a way that's more effective. You know, and I think if we focus on those three things, we would do much better.
Yeah, I think you're great. And I'll just sorry.
Yeah, and I have to say one thing. You know, so we've met, Mark. We've been working together for almost a year now, and I have to say I learned a lot with the Fifth Element Group. Right, I'm a partner at the Fifth Element Group. But if we put the business aside, I think the mission that the Fifth, you know, is not just the mission, but the agenda that the Fifth is pushing forward is, you know, there's good there. You know what I mean? And I haven't met one person through the interactions with, you know, this brain trust network of people that are not good-hearted people, and people that are really trying to do the right thing. And I think that means a lot, right? So we need more fifths out there.
More fifths. Well, I will give you the good news, and you can't solve everything in an hour, a week, or a year, or whatever. Is that more and more leaders are joining on to this whole non-flick culture. It's not the whole thing, and there's a lot more to this global partnership, but the point is that people have to stand up for what's right, like you both said, but you can do it in a way where a process like non-flick on how can you actively listen to the other person, how can you make sure you've heard it all, how can you then come to the best case scenario to move forward, rather than I'm right, you're wrong, I'm a winner, you're a loser type of thing can happen. So there's a lot of good stuff happening right now. Companies are taking it on, youth organizations are taking it on, which is key. So got to start somewhere. And I appreciate you guys for your wisdom and your caring, because it is important that leaders do care to make a difference out there. So with that said, I got one more question. You've probably heard me saying this at different times, but in the year 2021 or something like that, a client told me that 2020, the year of the pandemic, was the year that flew by slowly. And it always stuck with me because people I talk with say it feels like, COVID was yesterday and several years ago. It's like really weird. So with all that said, and now we're in 2024 already, in a couple of words, for each of you guys, I'll start with you, Serge. What are you most grateful for, and what are you most hopeful for?
Well, at least during the COVID time, that was giving, I would say, to the humanity the time to reflect and the time to think, which was never really some things that I would say most of the planet at the time to do, because they were more thinking about, I would say, the end of the month instead of the end of the world. And unfortunately, well, it wasn't the entire planet like this, because unfortunately, I would say not everybody is as fortunate as we are, unfortunately. That's one thing. The second thing, well, I think it shows and it reveals the character of the world where we are living. Just have to see today what are the scandal around the vaccine, okay, the way the things are preserved, and to see the sound of sacrifice, and basically where the humanity were able to be driven. And that is in certain aspect showing that the truth of the matter. In other words, okay, that was also leaving the place of what's matter. Families, times together. Can we still live together? Can we forget that maybe job is not everything? And that was the good part and the good part. I've said it, I don't want to say the good part. That was the realistic part of life. The sad part of it was basically people realized that I would say, well, we don't have any responsibility. We can lay back and we can see things in a very different way. And that is quite, I would say, hurtful, especially in a world where we need more doers, okay, than ever. And artificial intelligence is not going to be doing, I would say, everything we want, and is not going to cook, I would say, the food and bringing, I would say, the vegetable that we have on the table in order to eat. And but on the other way around, if we are looking about what COVID has been done, basically they allow people to completely not only reflect, but to look at answers. What's the meanings of their own life? What they want to do? What quality of life means? What people means? Okay, and basically realizing that, well, maybe we should think over there, and cut also that at the end of the day we are social beasts, because without any social connection, well, we are not good living in an apartment, no matter the mansion and the size of the mansion where we are living. So I think it was a very nice wake-up call. It shows the good and the bad, sadly. We are right now, we said, on the world level, the way I see it, we're in a very strange position. And I will say a lot of things are going to be depending on leaders, and they have to understand the weight on their shoulders. Because guys like us, as I would say, as so many good intentions that we have, there is so much we can do. But the one really in power, we see today the disaster on their decision. And I'm not putting the finger of anyone. I would say anyone thinking what they want to think about this. And but they have a full responsibility on what's going to happen within the next 10 years. And I will personally take them accountable. Because if they don't leave a nice future to my kids, to your kids, and to the 5 billion kids I don't know, well, they may understand that French Revolution, no one is not untouchable. Everyone can be touched. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be a lot of people, because when you take people who have nothing to lose, they have really nothing to lose. And we are doing that on the climate of, I would say, energy scarcity, biodiversity scarcity, because don't forget two things. 2025, 1.8 billion people don't have access to clean water. That's the WHO. 2030, 99% of the biodiversity is gone. Well, we're talking about very serious matter coming right now. Okay, and we are going there full speed. So it's giving a lot of opportunities. We have a lot of things to do, but we're already too late. And but it's not a reason also to give up. So we just to continue faster than we can ever do. The problem is the planet doesn't really react this way. And the buffer that we had, there is no more buffer. We are on straight line on the damage, the damages that we are causing. Your initiative, I love it. Well, we need to grow that very, very, very fast, but very, very, very fast, because otherwise I don't see it getting good whatsoever. And I think we have to remember that when we sell a weapon, or when we do anything, or when we put a vaccine on someone, there's a human being receiving that weapon or that vaccine. And we have responsibility for that, especially when we are the one buying the weapon, shooting the weapon, or shooting the vaccine or buying the vaccine. Or
You're just
the
gonna
good
have,
food or the bad food.
you're just gonna have to talk faster than you've ever talked so we can get it done. So, Paulo,
Absolutely.
your thoughts before we conclude?
Well, I think what I'm thankful for my family and friends. You know, that's very important to me. I'm thankful for my faith, and that's also very important to me. And what I'm hopeful for, I'm hopeful that the majority of the good people in this planet will continue to do great things and achieve great things and overcome the the smaller percentage of bad apples, and continue to make this world a better place. You know, that's what I'm hopeful for.
Awesome. Well, thanks. You cross your fingers, cross your toes, everything. Hey, I'm thankful that you guys, in all seriousness, are really leaders who care. And caring is not a fluffy thing anymore. It's something that we need. It's and soft skills, we've changed that to power skills. Soft skills are now called power skills. They're really important. You talked about leadership before, Serge. We need leaders that know how to lead and put great people together and so on. And I'm super admire both of you guys for what you've done together. And it makes me feel good that when I'm able to connect people that are way smarter than me, which is not a very high baseline, by the way, but it is a baseline, and they do amazing things together, then it's it restores hope for me. And
You're pretty up there yourself, Mark.
well, thanks. I'll pay you later for that. But thanks for being on this series. Thanks for what you do.
Thank you.
And for being leaders who care, for sure. And we're going to look for big things from you. So thanks a million, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much,
Thank you, Mark. Thanks for
care.
everything.
See you,
Thanks,
Serge. We'll be in
thanks.
touch. Take care. Bye-bye.
Absolutely.